Now, how would you like to live a life every day of love, joy, peace, and laughter? How would you like that to be the norm in your life experience? Maybe it is already for many of you, but what an idea to hold in our consciousness. And it's not a template for a structure to bring joy that we're talking about here today. It's simply what we come back to that we already know exists within us. You see, we already had it at one time in our experience, and it's already there. And it's just simply coming back to that. Coming back to God, we could call it that, coming back to a deeper awareness of ourselves. And we are in the presence of what is showing up in our life. It's about how we feel in relation to the world. It's about our consciousness. It's about how the work that we've done internally within our experience of life. And so we move as we make a decision in our life. We move from joy-killed to joy-filled. And our life becomes an experience of joy regardless of what is showing up around us. Because isn't our journey the journey from sense consciousness, which means our life and our feelings and our experience are ruled by the world around us, to Christ consciousness, which means our life and our experience in our world is guided by the world within us, by our own thoughts and feelings and experiences and reality about our life. Christ consciousness is not a serious thing. It sounds very serious, doesn't it? Christ consciousness. It's very serious. You think the disciples are walking around, seriously I don't think that's the way it was. I think it was a big party. Why would you leave your family to go walking around with some guy in the desert unless it was a party? It had to have been fun. Jesus was probably a fun guy to hang out with, He made things interesting. There was probably a lightness of spirit, and you can feel it if you read it in the context of the Scriptures and how it showed up. So Christ consciousness is not something that's heavy and weighty. It's something that's light. It lightens our spirit. It lifts us higher. It's like stepping into a helium balloon and soaring. That's the intention of that reality. We can live joyously with lightness all of the time. That's possible. That is absolutely possible to do. Even in the presence of our struggles, even in the moments when it's most difficult and we stand and say, this too shall pass. This too shall pass, and we feel the sense of lightness, that we know that, this is just the world showing up in this moment, and it doesn't seem fun at the moment, but someday I'll look back on this and maybe I'll have a laugh, maybe I won't, but it is what it is. Viral Minto, who was a teacher of Alpha Truth Awareness, and actually his class was kind of significant in my first couple of years in Unity way back when. He used to talk about having a delicious depression. And that was kind of the way he'd put it. If you're going to be depressed, have a delicious depression. And so even in the midst of having that moment of depression, if that thought goes into your mind, how can I make this delicious? How does that change that? It may not pull you totally out of the depression, but it starts you down a path where you go from joy-killed to joy-filled. I don't think it's that we laugh inappropriately in difficult situations. It is that we see life from a higher place and we know that this too shall pass. We know that we are moving through an experience. Lightheartedness for many is not an easy step because there's many who carry deep pain in their consciousness from experiences of the past, from abuse, from serious abuse, from all kinds of experiences that have shown up when we were innocent beings. And so there is that sense of deep pain, and those who have never experienced that, it's hard to understand it, but those that have it know it very well and very clearly. And so life really is a journey of transforming the pain, or it's living miserably out of it. One of the two. We have a choice that we can focus and transform the pain, or we can live miserably out of it. We can live in a joy-killed experience. And to transform the pain requires emotional healing. It means that it's a willingness to move into a journey of healing that which is in us, identifying the pain, and putting it into its proper perspective as a part of our life journey, perhaps even using the story of the Bible. Look at the tragedies in the Bible. I mean, look at the things that this people experience, being hauled off to bondage and slaughtered, and all the stuff that showed up, and you think, my goodness, and yet they're still together as a people. It's possible to move through that. Carrie says that when you do emotional healing, you learn to live in the present moment. You learn to stay present in your body and keep an ongoing awareness of your feelings. How am I feeling? How's that showing up? And deeper the pain, the more important is the work. It's about learning healing skills. You can learn skills. It's possible for us to learn skills where we can bring ourselves into the experience of joy when we're not experiencing that in our daily life. I had the experience of healing a few years ago, and I've told you this story before in one way or another, but I think for me it's a kind of a significant story right now. And it's that my first year at the University of Idaho in 1967 and 68, which is like 100 years ago it seems, my first year at that school as a pledge at the Phi Delta Theta fraternity house was the most miserable year of my life. Period. No question about it. It was abusive. It was, all the stuff that happened back in those days in the fraternity house, and there was all this whole energy field around, you abuse the pledges because you want to bind them together as a group, right? That's sort of the thinking, And so they did, and every day after day after day at lunch, there was not a meal that was peaceful. It was always something going on, and you're always jumping up on your chair, and you're always doing this and that and the other thing. And you would think it, to be funny, but it was actually very hard on my self-esteem because I hadn't come out of an environment like that, and so here I am in this experience. So it was the most miserable year of my life, period. And I stayed at the school for 2.5 years and finally ended up getting married and moving to Spokane and finishing up at Eastern Washington University. And I didn't go back to that school for 40 years. Not consciously. I didn't think about it, but for 40 years. I drove through Moscow maybe once on the way to someplace, but I never stopped by the campus. Didn't really talk much about it at all. And then about 6-7 years ago, I somehow got on an email list from the fraternity house, from the brothers of the bond, and they were having a reunion. And I'm thinking, do I want to go to this? And thinking about how, and there's a few guys that I liked, I remember, and I thought, it'd be nice to see those guys, and, kind of talked myself into going. And so I went to the reunion. And so I drove over to Moscow, and I'm in this reunion at the University Inn, and I'm seeing these guys, and I'm seeing them through the lens of my experience, right? I'm seeing them as abusers, as, this and that, because I never really saw them any other way because of how that experience showed up. And I was thinking as I was there, this is a problem. This is something I need to deal with in my experience. I need to heal this experience. And so I took some time and looked at it, and I worked with it, and I began to communicate by email with a lot of these folks. In fact, I even sent an email to one of my brothers who was one of the most difficult, and asked him if he wanted to play golf.